Louisiana versus all y'all. Jared Roser here with a special edition of Louisiana versus all y'all, where I think we can safely say during a pandemic anything is possible, because I have Adam Hunsucker from the News Star up in Monroe ready to talk a little bit about how Louisiana Tech and ULM are suddenly going to play each other for the first time in 2 decades, a day that I don't think either one of us ever thought we were going to see. Adam, how's it going, man?
It's going good. It's been a day. And, I'll go ahead and take the L for this, but, nobody saw this announcement coming. No one, not anybody covers ULM or Louisiana Tech or probably even anyone in the state. I mean, I was hunkered down working on stuff because, with the Big Sky making their announcement that they're not going to play until the spring, that left ULM without an opener. They're supposed to open with Cal Poly. And then out of nowhere, I was actually in my garage trying to squeeze a workout in real quick, and here we go. ULM and Tech are playing, but I guess the first observation was a pandemic does make for strange bedfellows, because as you and I both know, because you've been around up here being with the News Star in the past and covering Louisiana Tech, none of us ever thought we would see this day ever.
Yeah, I guess we obviously have it now in theory, assuming, as we were talking about before, assuming we get to November 21st through everything that's happened, and we'll kind of get back to some of that. But I'd covered Louisiana Tech for a couple of years up there, and then left and came down to NOLA.com Times-Picayune in 2012, I guess, which was in the middle of that season that Tech was having that great run they were putting together, and it kind of it ended up a couple games got away from them, and suddenly they're looking at potentially a ULM bowl game. And so that was a point when a lot of this drama really kind of popped up, and I was so thankful to be back in South Louisiana and not in the middle of it. Because, I mean, for folks down here that are not familiar with that dynamic, kind of give me your best explanation of how we are where we are, where two schools not far apart have not played in 20 years when it seems like it would make a lot of geographical sense.
And where to begin? Because I don't even know if you can do an abridged version of this, honestly. But yes, you're talking about two schools, ULM and Louisiana Tech, that are separated by 30 some odd miles. So you think, okay, they're that close. They're both G5 schools, and it would just make too much sense to play, wouldn't it? But other things get in the way. The history. This is a rivalry that goes back to, way back. We were talking about like back the 40s and 50s. Tech's always had the upper hand in it. They've always had, just in the history of both schools, Tech's always had it together a little bit more than ULM at most junctures, until the 80s came along. And, Tech was happy to play the game and bebop along until ULM got good in the 80s. And that started when John David Crow, the former Heisman Trophy winner, played for Bear Bryant at Texas A&M, got into coaching, Spring Hill guy. He took the ULM job, and you got to think of how big a deal that was at the time. You're talking about, I believe he was offensive coordinator with the San Diego Chargers. So a sitting NFL coordinator leaving his position to come to ULM, which was NLU at the time. And they got that thing rolling. And then along comes Pat Collins, who is people associate with ULM, but he's Louisiana Tech through and through, played at Tech, was on the coaching staff with Maxie Lambright for a lot of years. And he got passed over for the job and ended up as an assistant at ULM. And that's when this rivalry really took off, because ULM got good. The games were competitive. There was, a genuine hatred between both programs. It was intense now. But, Tech has always fancied itself as the superior in the rivalry, and rightfully so. They've dominated, and they've got a very good and-proud football history. So once ULM started beating them, that was something they didn't really know how to handle very well. And it got to the point where Tech, decided that they were going to jump to FBS, the former Division 1A. And kind of left the rivalry behind. They did take back control of it before they made that move. But Tech's argument has always been that it does them no good to play ULM because they have nothing to gain and everything to lose. And depending on how you want to view that, you can take that interpretation. Or the more obvious one, at least in my mind, is they are petrified to play this game because you can't be superior to somebody if they beat you. So that's one of the reasons you've seen it off and on. And then, it did pick up. They played consecutively from 1953 to 1991. Then there was a hiatus. They picked back up in 1997 and played until 2000. And those 4 games were just – it really wasn't a good time. Tech had some good teams at that time. That was the Gary Croton years. But, ULM was a mess. They were trying to find their way in FBS, which they're still trying to do 25 years later. And just the games weren't competitive and weren't well attended. So that's when you saw the series, take the 20-year hiatus it's been on and go dormant. And there's still been a hankering – for folks up here to see that game play, particularly on the ULM side, but there are also Tech people that would like to see this game play too. But now we're going to get that, and it's good. They're getting what they want. Now I've written about this in the past. I'm just curious to see what the expectations of people are with this game, because I think as good as it's going to be for the region, especially during this pandemic, because we're all trying to play football, to play this thing and expect it to be just like it was in the 80s right off the bat, I don't think that's realistic.
Yeah, it's been a long hiatus for it to go back to that level of familiarity, I guess, on the field. And then obviously you mentioned some good teams that had played in the past. And I've really enjoyed watching you kind of in the middle of some of that fan interaction, though, because you've put yourself right in there and kind of like orchestrated some of it at times and kind of have your funny jabs. What has that been like to be in the middle of some of that? Because as much as the teams haven't played, a lot of that back and forth with the fans has really never gone away.
No, it hasn't, and it has been fun. Particular fans from a certain era, because as I said, it's been a long time since this game has been played. I mean, you're talking. Most of the crowd is, 40 or above. You get a few, the student. There's a competitive streak with the students now on campus, and some in their 30s, but it's not quite like the old guard. But, it's been amusing on Twitter to see people go back and forth with it, because it cracks me up how everyone plays their part, each fan base, when it comes to this rivalry. ULM fan is very much the drunk redneck in the bar fight who does not know when to stay down. They keep getting knocked back down, but they're always going to come back for more. Whereas Tech, I think the analogy I use, it's like when Dad hits 40 and buys that Corvette. I mean, you're masking the insecurities with the superiority complex, and that's what makes it so entertaining. Especially for me, being originally from Tennessee and not from here. Got to give credit to Austin Griffin on Twitter. He's the one that got this going. He's the one that hit up myself and Sean Fox and a few others in the media up here after the SEC announcement to let us know that Tech and ULM both had that November 21st hole. ULM was supposed to play at Arkansas. Tech was supposed to play at Vandy. So he's one to let the horse out of the barn. Fox and I just kind of beat the hell out of it until it got to the point to where it was. And, we made it happen, I guess. And that's all that matters.
I knew we were going to get some of those good metaphors. I feel like it might have been Brady down in Lake Charles, who obviously spent time in Monroe, and it was either him or someone else on Twitter earlier kind of compared it to Capulet's Montagues or tried to like make some sort of analogy. And I was like, I don't know that that's really like quite it.
Shakespeare's not going to go over in North Louisiana. You might come up with something else.
Yeah. And I mean, I kind of I went back to so many coaches go back to Hatfields and McCoys sort of thing, but that was an ongoing constant bickering through the years, and so we haven't had that with these two. So it's definitely a special dynamic that we're theoretically in for, because again, as we joked about before, if these sly folks scheduled this thing for a year where it potentially doesn't happen anyway and say, look, we did it, and then we don't even get the game, then we're all going to be talking about that conspiracy theory for years to come.
Yeah, that's the conspiracy theory is Tech agreed to play this game because they don't think the season's going to happen. I don't believe that, but it's fun to speculate. I mean, and I think some of that goes back to the fallout from the 2012 Independence Bowl. Like you said, you weren't around for that. Our boy Matt Vines was the one who had to deal with the brunt of that. But
I think he texted me and was like, "What did you just leave me in the middle of, man?"
But as you know too, Matt's grandfather was Dwight Vines, who passed away back last fall. He was the former president of ULM. I miss that dude every day. If you were ever a ULM beat writer, he would call you at least twice a week to talk about this. He would be loving this right now.
How as you guys do gear up for the start of a season, and you mentioned trying to keep up with some of ULM's scheduling dynamics even up to this point, what is kind of the overall vibe of trying to cover that program and just that area overall gearing up towards some sort of a return to sports and towards some sort of normalcy? How are things going basically around Northeast Louisiana from your perspective?
Well, it's been busy because, we're doubling up on preps too. And, you and I were both on that LHSA Zoom call this week with Eddie Bonine. And, it's like I said, it's been busy. It's been a little hairy at times. But the biggest thing with the schedule, and especially on ULM's end of it, from some of the folks down south that may not know, ULM is very much dependent on these guarantee games with Power Five, the kind you see LSU and Alabama and everybody play every year. And with the SEC moving to that 10-game schedule, ULM's looking at trying to fill a $3.2 million hole that they were going to get from playing Georgia and Arkansas this year. And then cap that off, they lost another $1.1 million in revenue when the spring sports were canceled back in March. So you're looking at possibly 25% of the athletic budget's just gone. So that's why, right now they're, trying to sort something out. Arkansas sent their official letter of termination for that game this week, and Scott McDonald, ULM's AD, and Hunter Yurchich are going to sort that out at some point, and then they're going to have to do the same with Georgia. But it's, for a school like that, it's just without this money. So, but they're also looking at now. They've got 2 dates to fill on this schedule. One of those, it was 3 earlier today. Then we got down to 2 with the announcement that ULM and Tech are going to play. But, Cal Poly dropped out. They were supposed to open the season at ULM on September 5th. So that's when they got to get filled. And then they've got a date with Georgia that was set for September. And they're going to try to fill those with home games if they can. And I think what the interesting thing that's going to be to watch amongst the group of 5, that's not just ULM, that's Louisiana Tech, that's Tulane, that's Louisiana-Lafayette, as they go about trying to fill these holes, is what the prices are going to be. Because, everyone, I believe everyone but the Big 12 is set right now. So I don't think you're going to see any more group of 5, Power 5 games going forward, which doesn't make sense because from what I'm told from a few different ADs around the group of 5 is that revenue that you normally see for those games is not going to be there just because of this pandemic. But at the same time, it's also not going to cost as much for a G5 to go get an FCS to come and play if there's a hole in the schedule there. So it could be a situation where you'll see more G5s have some home games against some FCS teams and maybe not start out in the hole some of them are accustomed to from playing these Power 5s.
No doubt. Obviously we're still a ways away and we're kind of joking about what if we don't get it at all, but do you have any early anticipation for what that actual football game looks like November 21st in Shreveport?
I'm very curious to see because right now it's easy for everyone to get on and talk about it and talk smack to the other side, but we are also talking about 2 fan bases that are very fickle when it comes to attendance, a tad bit bougie if you want to add that, and a lot older. It's an older base on both sides. And if it's November and it's cold and the weather's not cooperating, we're going to want to sit out in there. And, with COVID-19 going on, are old people really going to want to be out in public? Is that a good idea? So you think about that. But, for right now, I'm optimistic and see what they can pop in the crowd. I mean, I wouldn't think it'd be fair to judge too harshly on that with everything going on in the world, but we'll see. I also know how things can go in not just Russ, and this is a Monroe deal too, is they will not sometimes, the hate is so strong between these two that they will not show up to a game out of spite. So I'm curious to see how that will go too. I think you would see that more on the Tech side right now because then if they don't show up, they can go back and say, see, we told you no one cares about this game.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
You mentioned in some of the scheduling stuff Louisiana-Lafayette, which if you mention them by pretty much any name, you risk throwing them into the middle of the melee and the pettiness. So we'll see if any Cajuns happen to listen along long enough and if they have any commentary on any of this too.
Well, they know where to find me. That's an old one as well. But see, and that's when I go back. I know the layman college football fan is only going to pay attention to the Power 5 and I would be among them if I hadn't moved to this state when I did. But like college football in this state is so much fun, especially when you get to these Louisiana G5 rivalries. I mean, it's perfect. I mean, it's everything you could want for out of a journalist. You got stories, you got all kinds of
stuff. And I told you, through some of these conversations I've had with different reporters from around the state or with different ties to the state, it's been interesting for me to just kind of pick your brains about some of your overall experience and getting to these points. You mentioned coming from Tennessee, coming down here, and now, I mean, obviously laying down pretty strong roots here, and it's certainly an experience overall that you have to appreciate, if nothing for else, for the love of your life being involved. But how is your overall experience of the journalism side of things and been in Monroe, and just kind of some of your favorite lessons or favorite stories along the way? And I'm sure this one will end up being one to remember too, but up to this point.
Well, it's funny because it starts. I think you and I had the same experience from starting out the New Star, and that we both did preps first, and I still am. But we were both around Neville a whole lot, and I never will forget my first day at the New Star. Showed up not knowing anything really about anything up here, or honestly most of the state for that matter, when it came to high school sports, even some college, the more regional stuff that you don't get outside of LSU. But they told me they want me to cover Neville, and they asked me to go to Neville and find a story, so I did. And I get out there not knowing anyone, and the first person I met was Sonny Smith. This old guy came up to me. He was wearing one of those tall, old, like Abe Lincoln looking coach's hats that said Neville staff on it. The man was wearing it was like he still, and I swear he still has all his coaching stuff like from the 60s. And he still wears a lot of it. And he shows up, and I'm like, who is this guy? And then I found out, well, this is Charlie Brown's offensive line coach. So this is a guy, that's seen a thing or two around these parts. So he kind of took me around and introduced me to everybody. And, everybody's been so cool since, not just from the prep stuff, even going from ULM. Of course, the differences in covering a high school and a college beat are they're a little different when it comes to some of the accountability and some of the stuff that you have to hold a college accountable with on that side. But I will say everybody's been so cool and so welcoming to me, and really just embraced me from the second I started doing this. And I think that says a lot, not just about this region, but about this state, because I can say the same about other universities or high schools or our colleagues throughout the boot. And it's just been a really cool experience. One I didn't know necessarily would be this way, but I'm glad it has.
Yeah, it was fun for me when I went up there because my hair was longer at that point too, and so Kristen and Tabby, who were working in the sports section at that point, warned me, "Oh, you're gonna have a hard time coming up here with all this hippie long hair stuff." And next thing I know, I mean, everyone seemed to embrace me so well. I embraced everyone. Caught some heat if I picked the wrong team on a Friday night in the Friday morning newspaper. But
those pick 'em something serious.
But yeah, it was a great couple of years, and I mean, in a place that I wouldn't have seen myself certainly growing up in New Orleans, or I mean, for most of my LSU career, and until I started looking at jobs and saw that there was an opportunity to come cover the colleges and the preps up there. And I mean, we've kind of messaged a little bit about some of the Neville dynamic. That was such a cool. I mean, really, Neville was a beat and is a beat in Monroe, and it was a cool one to be a part of there.
Yeah, there's just not a lot of places like it at Neville, and it's really just the tradition and everything they have, and going all the way back to the 30s, and it's just, I mean, I say it all the time. I think that stadium's haunted, like it has to be, especially when you get into the playoffs and you got folks coming in here deep from South Louisiana. It gets a little chilly, and any kind of rain or anything, this fog just kind of sits over the stadium, and it's just kind of eerie looking. You can just feel it, and it's really cool. But not just them too, but then you got West Monroe up here too, which I call the Death Star. I mean, that thing is just, I mean, it's an empire. I mean, it's a factory of football. They know what they're doing. That's why they're as good as they are year in and year out. And it may be more of a basketball thing, but you and I both know you're not going to find a group of cooler people than you'll find at places like Washita and Wasserman and Richwood and other things like that. And it's always a good time. And you go somewhere, people are happy to see you. You got some good games to cover, some great kids, and some really good athletes. I mean, you can't ask for more than that.
Yeah, it was absolutely a blast when I was up there, and hopefully we're back to something close enough to normal where you can go enjoy a lot of that here sooner than later.
We're gonna try. We'll see how it goes, but hopefully we can get something in, and we'll see we'll see what happens.
And if we keep lucking into some things with the way some of this scheduling is going, as what we got with the ULM and Louisiana Tech announcement, maybe I get an LSU bye week in late November and I get a chance to come up to Shreveport because I would love to be there for that thing and see you up there at Independence Stadium.
You absolutely should. I've already talked to a few people around the state, so we could be up in there deep on November 21st. That would be absolutely awesome. And the eyeball's got enough to accommodate everybody. So come on.
There we go. Well, Adam, I appreciate you taking some time to talk about all of it with me, man. And go enjoy the rest of your Friday night and your weekend.
You do the same, man. We'll do this again soon.
Hey, sounds great to me. Again, he's Adam Hunsucker at the News Star, getting ready for this shocking ULM and Louisiana Tech game now set for a few months from now. For Louisiana versus all y'all, Jarrett Roser.